Interested in ghosts? UFOs? How about the occult? Are you psychic? Would you like to find out? Well, if you're intrigued by the world's curiosities and all that is paranormal, then Paralore.com is a place for you. Create your own profile, start a photo album, write a blog, or just hang out and watch countless hours worth of paranormal videos while chatting with other Paralore members. Who knows? You could win a prize or two if you're quick and brave enough. It's all here, and it's all free. Visit www.paralore.com and join today. Again, membership is free, and we know you won't be disappointed.
Paralore.com. Unlock your mind.
Wondering where you can get the latest news and reviews from the world of paranormal entertainment? Frank and Laura take a look at the latest happenings and break down what's new on TV and at the movies each week on Spooktacular, your paranormal entertainment roundup. Check them out by searching for Spooktacular in iTunes or head on over to Spooktacular.com. Oh yeah, be sure to bring along a friend because no one should listen alone.
I'd like to share a recent experience where I strongly believe that I encountered a shadow person.
When I looked, it was January 5th, 2046.
I just, I want to find an explanation for it. I want to rule it out as, something that was logical.
There are many things we have yet to learn about and understand. Join us here at Supernatural Existence and learn about the many mysteries of the universe. Feel free to subscribe via any of your favorite podcast directories, including iTunes, or check us out on the Supernatural Existence website at www.glowby.com. The mysteries are waiting to be understood.
I really want to see something supernatural with my own eyes, not hear it or think I heard it or anything like that, actually see it with my own eyes, capture it on camera, hear something weird or something like that.
Arr! Hey, it's Wolfman Mac from Wolfman Mac's Nightmare Cinema. We're hanging out at the Haunted Winery here in Warren, Michigan with the good folks from Ghostly Talk. Ooh, this place is creepy, man, but nowhere near as creepy as Wolfman Mac's Nightmare Cinema. It's a haunted drive-in, babies, and you know what we do there? We host classic B horror and sci-fi movies, just like the ones you grew up with when you was a kid. And it's at Wolfman Mac's Nightmare Cinema right now, hosting on public access TV all over Metro Detroit. But guess what, kiddies? It's coming to you, and all you got to do is have a computer. Just go to Wolfman Mac's Nightmare Cinema. It's nightmarecinema.com. We'll be broadcasting the show real soon, right from the website. Stay tuned. It's Wolfman Mac, Nightmare Cinema.
Nightmare Cinema.
You're listening to Ghostly Talk.
In Witness to Roswell, the revised and expanded edition, Donald R. Schmitt and Thomas J. Carey lay out scientific evidence that the Roswell crash involved an extraterrestrial spacecraft manufactured off-planet and not a weather balloon, as the Air Force and the government have been trying to explain it for over 60 years. Schmitt and Carey name names, such as the Air Force general who was flown into Roswell and then reported on the incident directly to President Truman, and the nurse who is alleged to have participated in the alien autopsy. The website is warwickassociates.net /about/book /ID.
Yeah, this is going to be a brutal. You know what? We'll try to find a better link from these guys here on the line right now, because I know I couldn't find a good link for
it. But regardless, it's going to be linked up at ghostlytalk.com.
Yeah, we're going to have the link up there, yeah. I just kind of threw that on there in the notes, and I know it's ugly as hell. So.
Thank you, Scott. That works. So Ghostly Talk would like to welcome Donald R. Schmitt and Thomas J. Carey to the show. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello. Nice to be with you, and we should point out immediately we have our own website as well, so you'll probably be able to easily link in that regard.
What's the website? Yeah, what's the website, please?
www.roswellinvestigator.com.
Fantastic. Roswell Investigator, one word, all run together.com. We'll definitely use that.
I like this a lot
ugly
more
thing on our note sheet right now.
Yeah, Warwick doesn't exactly sound... Warwick, I suppose it's... For your program, it would sound a little bit more appropriate.
It's a powerful name.
It's a powerful name. Yes. Now, we've talked about Roswell on this show countless times. Doug's been there himself for the festival.
Well, do you know, gentlemen, I was actually so intrigued by all the legends and lore and stories that you hear about, and of course there's facts, and then there's truths and half-truths and misleading information and lies perpetuated as information. I mean, the whole thing is just this big conglomeration of it's like one of them rubber band balls, and if you try and pull one, you don't know if it's going to unravel or if it's going to fall apart or if it's just going to snap your finger and hurt you. Just what an amazing part of history Roswell is, and so I actually went there. Was it 1 or 2 years ago?
2 years ago. I think it was 2 summers ago. Yeah.
To experience.
Yeah, we saw you. We saw you taken away in the handcuffs.
Yes, that was me. That was the one. It was fun. It was. I had to talk to authorities that way.
Yes.
So it's just such an incredible part of Americana. Roswell is with the crash, the farmer.
Well, the questions.
Rancher.
I'm sorry, rancher.
Yes.
They even have the museum is incredible there. I mean, there's like all this information, and it's just so difficult to unentangle that Witness to Roswell, the revised and expanded edition, is a welcome addition to anybody's bookshelf to try and get to the crux of the matter.
How'd you guys...
Not to step on Tom's toes, and that's where we do come in as far as to untangle. As our late scientific director, Dr. Jalen Hynek, used to suggest separating the wheat from the chaff, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But as you witnessed firsthand, where it has become this circus, this carnival, in many respects, it's no different than Graceland or any battlefield. You even go down the Dealey Plaza down in Dallas, Texas, and they have conventions to commemorate the assassination of a president, no less. It was one of the things that we anticipated, one of the things that we became very concerned about, even in the beginning throes of our investigation in the early 90s. And it was one of the reasons we went to the city fathers of Roswell, because we were becoming concerned about outside opportunists coming in and exploiting this historic event. So we pushed personally for the museum. And it's the reason that the museum, aside from that whole parade mentality and light posts that have the alien eyes painted on each one and all the murals and all the spin-off stores throughout, we still have the museum. And it's at least one place where you can go and at least get as much up-to-date information aside from our research and our website and our books. Otherwise, just expect to be entertained. And the festival originally was even to commemorate the incident. Now it's just to have a big party.
Right.
Have a big festival.
Yeah, and that's kind of...
what happened back in 47? Oh, we didn't know about that.
And that's kind of the impression that Doug left on me about it. I mean,
but there's actually two sides to the festival. I mean, because they do tend to... The festival does tend to attract, some of the bigger wigs, the people who have researched this kind of thing and put out books and have researched, done the, the heavy lifting. But it
ourselves included, right?
Yourselves included, but it also attracts, like you said, the people who've grown up with, E.T. on their DVDs, and the people who grew up with the Hollywood version of
any of this
spacemen and aliens, and so there's people who are interested from both angles, and I was interested in the entire event because it's a part. I was from history, kind of. This is really important to Americana, and I wanted to check it out. And plus, we've talked about so much about UFOs and aliens on the show that I had to go see it, and it was worth it. It was worth it. The museum, like I had said before, absolutely phenomenal. Thank you for pushing for that, because that really did. That was more the how like in a TV, not a TV movie, in a Hollywood movie, you'll see based on a true story, right? And then all of a sudden things are flying out of the covers and off the walls, and then hallucinations are happening and people are getting killed and special effects are everywhere, So where's the true story part of it? Well,
and there's the dramatic license, right?
Right, the dramatic license, and there's a lot of that in movies. Well, the research, the actual, the writings, the photos, everything is in the museum. You go there and you can see the true story part of it, or at least what was published about it and researched about it. As soon as you step outside the doors, that's when you get into more of the Hollywood version of it.
Well, one other case in point, and Tom, please, jump in anytime you'd like, but there are no tours. There is not a tourist attraction to the crash site.
Right.
The very location that the rancher discovered, all this wreckage, the very site that we've had now 3 archaeological digs, we're planning on a 4th. And in 2003, we had a dedication of a monument, a stone, out at the site. And we had a number of people from the press and other luminaries and people from the museum and so on. And we invited the last survivors of the original family to also come in. And everybody was approaching me, Don, this isn't the exact site. This isn't correct. And I kept saying it's close enough. Because, and Tom would agree with me, we have such respect for that precise location. And first of all, not only is it still an active archaeological site, but in our case, it's like walking on solemn ground, like walking on a battlefield. If one accepts that something that extraordinary and that there were fatalities, whether human or not, at that precise location, we're not about to make it into that part of that circus that you observed down in Roswell.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there are no tours. People can go out to that stone, and they're about a mile away. It's overlooking that arroyo, but they're close enough, as I said. So that's where we come from. But you are correct, and we realize it's human nature, and that people, at least they're there, at least they're coming in, and they are at least acknowledging that something, has drawn them to this event, whether it's 1947 or just the possibility that, hey, there's life out there. We're not alone. It's a beginning. It's a step in our right direction.
Yes, and that curiosity is exactly that's a good question, because that's why I went, because I was curious. I was talked about it before. I needed to know. I needed to see something, even if I was literally 100 miles from the actual crash site. I just needed to be around people for a little while, and say, do you think it happened? Do you think there's alien life? Do you what is? Just talk about it. Just talk about it in general, and connect with other people and what they're thinking. So why not connect? I want to know what brought you two into the subject of UFOs in the first place, because I have a feeling at some point in your lives you were hanging from monkey bars on the playground and not caring at all about the universe, and then all of a sudden something had to say, you know what, there's UFOs, I'm going to look into this.
I will. Hello, this is Tom.
Hi, Tom.
I can tell you exactly when that point was. I was 8 years old. And my older brother, who is 3 years older than I am, he actually read things. He was he's got a PhD now, and he's a professor emeritus. But back then, he was 11 years old, and I was 8. And I'm sitting there, watching TV, and he says, "Hey, Tom, listen to this." And he says, he starts reading an article from the newspaper, and it talked about how these fiery disc-shaped objects outran our latest jet fighter planes. And I just could not, I was a big, I still am a military buff, World War II and, planes and ships and tanks and all that sort of stuff. I couldn't imagine what could outrun our latest jet fighters. For me, 8 years old, the fastest things in the world were jets. And that was at that moment that my interest was kindled. And not to say that I went out and read a book, because I didn't. I was, mostly into athletics. I was always out playing something, And but that's what kindled my interest. And over the years, when I became aware exactly what UFOs, or flying saucers as they were then called, were, I said, boy, this really is interesting. And I actually bought a book. It was called, it was by Edward J. Ruppelt, the former head of Project Blue Book, called The Report on Unidentified Flying Objects. And it was one of the most interesting books. Well, it was the first book I ever read. And that, for me, that's what started me in this particular subject as a sort of a side interest. And I have to say that what focused me on Roswell was many years later the 1980 book, The Roswell Incident by Charles Berlitz and William Moore, which I found so interesting and fascinating, because we're dealing with artifacts in the form of crashed spaceships and dead alien bodies and stuff like that, as opposed to lights in the sky. You know what I mean? It's the promise is of real, tangible artifacts, as opposed to, oh, there goes a light in the sky, I wonder what that was. End of story. So at that point, I became interested in the subject of crashed UFOs, most notably the Roswell crash. And since 1991, my focus has solely been on the Roswell crash and nothing else. So That's it in a nutshell.
And that's an interest, because that's the way a lifelong pursuit does begin. I mean, I've noticed that over and over and over. Something happens, then life intervenes, and then all of a sudden it's like... And believe me, of pursuits, this is one of the ones that makes me dream and think and hope and wish and pray the most.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know, Roswell is amazing.
Well, go ahead. Go ahead, guys.
I left one point out. At some point, not all of us, you've heard of, like, history buffs and music buffs and UFO buffs. Well, at some point, some of this crossed the threshold of from being a buff to being an active investigator. Mm-hmm. It's a large threshold to cross, and most people can't do it when trying to interview people. But I made that transition in 1991 when I dialed up Randall and Schmitt to see what they were doing on Roswell. I knew they were reopening the case, and at that point I thought I had something to offer the investigation, and it was in 91, 18 years ago, I made that, I crossed that threshold, and I've been an investigator of this one case ever since.
Well, I know, and it's the same thing. I mean, we got started in this, in the whole paranormal field. I know Doug and I both got started because we were very interested in ghost hunting. And there was I know there was something that changed in us too, because we started out as not, people who were interested in this field. I mean, and that goes across the board now. Even with UFOs, I find
you start out as a buff.
Yeah, and we did the same thing. We were interested in this thing, and both of us kind of, thank goodness for Yahoo, I guess, because that's kind of how we got together with a bunch of other people, and we changed over also from being people who read books, had an interest in the field, to being investigators and going out and doing this.
And once we started talking about ghosts in this kind of forum, that just led into all other kinds of things, including UFOs and aliens.
Well, yeah, and that's why that's why we talk about UFOs nowadays, if not more, just as much than we talk about ghosts or any other stuff here.
And like you were saying, Thomas, the promise of UFOs, there's sometimes physical evidence. Now, is it accessible? Like, can you go to a place and actually pick up a piece of a crashed spaceship? Probably not, unless you have the highest clearance, et cetera, and are in the know. But there could be physical
We're working
evidence.
on that.
Good.
We're working on that. But
really?
I think in your introduction you said that we present scientific evidence. No, we don't. We don't present scientific evidence because we don't have a piece of the ship.
Mm-hmm.
Or a piece of one of the cadavers. We don't have that yet, but we are working diligently on that, and really it's the only missing piece of the story. Everything else, more or less, I think Don will agree with me on this. We have the framework, and we're filling in the empty spots, and we have most of it. And what we need now is a piece of physical evidence, and that will sort of, as they used to say, gild the lily. We will have the story complete.
Well, when it comes to Roswell, Doug, were you going to say that?
Well, I would say, is Roswell, is it the biggest of all crashes? Is it the most? I mean, because they talk about it as the granddaddy of all,
all
UFO
these
cases. But
cases.
I don't think it was the first. But is it is that the incident that everything else has sprung from? What makes it one of the more important?
What made that one out of all these other cases that are out there made Roswell where it is? What made it the one with everybody? When you think of this stuff, you think of Roswell. Why do you think that it made it what it is today?
Well, first of all, because it was the first and only time that the United States military actually put out an announcement of the actual recovery of a flying saucer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that day of July 8th of 1947, I mean, that is what makes Roswell an historic fact. That for the, first and only time that pronouncement was made. That acknowledgement, traveled the globe. The problem is within 5 hours it was retracted, and they substituted a very common weather balloon radar kite device, which would serve as its official explanation for the next 40 years. Now, as you described, I mean, we refer to Roswell as the granddaddy of all UFO cases.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, because if it happened, it's the greatest, it's the most important news story of the millennium, bar none. I mean, I would challenge anyone to suggest anything that would surpass, such news.
I agree. The implications are very far-reaching.
The implications alone, as to the fact that not only are we not alone, but we are being visited, and one met a very fateful end as far as back in 1947. Now, what was striking about Roswell, as far as in the initial stages, was the fact that New Mexico was the hotbed of all military activity back at that time, post-World War II.
Mm-hmm.
You not only had ongoing atomic research at Los Alamos, but you had all the testing of the captured German V-2 rockets at White Sands. And at Roswell itself, you had it was the headquarters of the first atomic bomb squadron in the world, the 509th Bomb Wing. So it would only make sense that if you were an outside visitor, that the first thing you would check out would be the military potential of the planet. And according to the Air Force Project Blue Book, there were more UFO sightings in New Mexico than anywhere else in the country at that time. And one crashes. And as Tom was describing, every other UFO case pales in comparison because there is absolutely no potential for physical evidence. You have photographs, you have videos, you might have physical after effects on the ground, but nonetheless, it's still conventional. You're still dealing with something of an earthly origin. With Roswell, you're dealing with a superior technology. You're dealing with something made off the planet. And I say that, just repeating, verbatim what hundreds of witnesses have said to us. And we're not looking skyward hoping, for the inevitable answer. We can look at fellow earthlings. We can look at people in control, our elected officials, our military, and accuse them of this massive ongoing cover-up. The fact that they are withholding from the very people they are elected and hired to serve, and they decided for all time that we're not going to be told. And I don't care if it pertains to UFOs or some top-secret device or something that we are serving as, guinea pigs as far as in some, Frankensteinian type of experiment.
Mm-hmm.
We deserve to know. And I think that's where we come down the strongest. It just so happens to be that we're following the evidence, the chain of evidence, and this is what the witnesses are telling us. That the very first announcement was the correct story. That it was the crash of a flying saucer. And I think anyone who wants to challenge or argue the fact that that in itself makes it the granddaddy, makes it not only the biggest UFO story, but one of the biggest stories of all time. And it's like, how can you turn away from that? How can you just ignore? It's like, if it's at all possible, you have to look into it. You have to check it out. And as we so, frustratingly say, we're running a race with the Undertaker. We're running out of time because our witnesses of that World War II, that great generation, are all passing away.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Yeah, it is a big story. It needs to be investigated, and I'm glad you two are out there doing it. We'll take a break.
Yeah,
because I want to let that soak in. I want everybody to look up, go to your
Roswell.
and stuff.
Roswell Investigator, RoswellInvestigator.com, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
yes,
cool.
And that's the book, Witness to Roswell, the Revised and Expanded Edition. But we'll get more into it after the break because I want to know about the crash site itself because you guys have been there, right? And I want to know just whatever you can tell us just to tease us and tell us, hey, there's more in the book, but here's a little taste for you. We'll do that after the break.
Ghostly Talk!
Paranormal investigation groups all over the world are looking for answers. We all clamor at the chance to get even the tiniest peek at who or what is on the other side. CPR, or Cooperative for Paranormal Research, is one of these groups. We are dedicated to finding the answers. dedicated to finding evidence of the paranormal, and dedicated to proving that some places are truly haunted.
The Darker Side of the Moon is an alternative talk variety show. DarkerSideRadio.com. Since 2006, host Becky Ray and Laura Moon speak with independent filmmakers, authors, musicians, artists, and many, many more.
DarkerSideRadio.com.
Sometimes serious, mostly fun, the show has a little for everyone.
DarkerSideRadio.com.
Was it odd, freaky, and you didn't hear it on the 5 o'clock news? Then we'll probably cover it here.
DarkerSideRadio.com.
Darker Side currently airs live Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 7 p.m. Central and 5 p.m. Pacific.
DarkerSideRadio.com.
If you happen to miss it, you can listen to show archives at any time online at DarkerSideRadio.com, or you may subscribe to the show on iTunes.
DarkerSideRadio.com.
Hi, this is Luke.
And this is Tobin from Quest Research.
Hey, Tobin, what do you get when 4 guys with absolutely no video experience whatsoever decide to produce their own online paranormal TV show?
I don't know. What? Oh, wait. I do know. Ghost Diaries, right?
That's right.
You can check us out and get involved at www.questresearch.net. And the good thing about being new is that we will only get better.
The television screen is the retina of the mind's eye. Therefore, television is reality, and reality is less than television.
This is Ghostly Talk, and I'm Doug.
I'm Scott L.
I'm Amy.
Thank you, Amy. Amy, a.k.a. Vaughn.
We're going to run that one out as long as we can.
Oh, absolutely.
Can we do this for like at least 3 more shows?
Absolutely.
Yeah, your name is Amy.
Do you know, we're talking with Donald R. Schmitt and Thomas J. Carey. The book is Witness to Roswell, the revised and expanded edition, because this story really doesn't end. I mean, there's new information coming out all the time. There's so much information about Roswell, and we've heard it all, fellows. You know, we've heard tons of fantastic stories about underground caverns and, you know, built by alien technology and alien
actual
races,
wars going on. You know.
Wars going on in the skies between alien races, and then the president will ally himself with one race one time and then another race another. I mean, we've heard all these fantastic stories, but where you two come in is like actual bringing us back down to earth, because you guys talk about, you know, facts, and I like the facts, and I want to know, because I've not been there. I've been to Roswell, but I haven't been to the crash site. But you have. You said so in the last half hour. I'm wondering, what are the facts about the crash site? Is it this remarkable thing? I mean, I know you guys look at it as a very sacred place because something could have happened there in 1947. But what are the facts about it? Is it flat? Is it exciting? Is it kind of boring looking when you're walking up to it, but then you get a chill? What about the facts about the site?
If it weren't for the crash, it would be pretty boring because it's scrub desert. It's out in there's 3 sites. First of all, let me tell you that Don and I have identified 3 separate sites related to this one incident.
Interesting. You mean 3 different crashes, or like bits and pieces breaking up as it crashes?
Well, it's probably better if I...
go ahead. Yes, tell me. I know I'm jumping the gun. I'm really excited about this. So go ahead. Take me on a ride. I want to know about this.
Okay. We figure that based on testimony from witnesses that it really wasn't a crash. It was more of an explosion. Occurred late on the evening of July the 3rd, 1947. Now, either the ship malfunctioned and exploded from within, or it was some external force, such as a lightning strike, caused the ship to explode into small pieces and rained these little pieces down on a sheep pasture on a ranch that was run by a rancher named Mac Brazel. And several witnesses that night heard a muffled explosion late in the evening during a thunderstorm, lightning and thunderstorm, but they heard one explosion that was slightly different. And they didn't pay too much attention to it other than to note it. Well, the next day, Brazel goes out to check his sheep, check the fence, see what's doing, and he comes across this sheep pasture about a mile long by a couple 100 feet wide, full of this strange wreckage, little pieces of strange wreckage. And at that point, his sheep won't cross it. So he's not too happy about it. And this location is about 75 miles northwest of Roswell, maybe 30 miles southeast of Corona, New Mexico. It's way out in the middle of the desert. They only got electricity there in the mid-'80s. Very remote, desolate, scrub desert. Okay, that's the first site. Even the Air Force admits that there was something, that's where something happened. It's just we disagree on what we say happened there. 2.5 miles east of that site, this is just 2.5 miles east of that site, in 1994, a gentleman by the name of D. Proctor, who was a 7-year-old boy at the time of the incident. In 94, his mother was on her deathbed, or so everybody thought, and he says, "Oh my goodness, she's on her deathbed." So he bundles her up, stuffs her into his pickup truck, and drives her out into the middle of the desert, and to this site. It's a low bluff, 2.5 miles east of this debris field, and says, "Mom, here's where Mac found something else." Now, that's all we know that he told her, but what would cause him to take his mother on her deathbed? She had a blood clot in her neck, and they didn't know if she was going to make it or not. And drive her out into the desert over rough terrain, bouncy, and to this site to say, well, here's where Mac found something else. Well, what we believe, based on other witness testimony, and even Mac Brazel himself, we believe what happened was that when the ship exploded over the debris field, there was a part of the ship, the inner cabin or an escape pod of some sort, that was unaffected, and that was all that remained intact, and that continued on for another 30 miles. But we believe that there were 2 or 3 of the occupants of the ship that were not inside this inner cabin and were blown out when the ship exploded, and came to meet their death on this low bluff 2.5 miles east of this debris field. So there's 2 or 3 aliens dead on this low bluff. That's the second site. Now, the third site is what we call the impact site. That's where the remainder of the ship, the inner cabin, the escape pod, the capsule that was still intact, came to rest 30 miles east of the debris field, much closer to the town of Roswell, about 30 miles north of it, a few miles west of Highway 285. And it was there that this capsule, it was egg-shaped, about 12 feet long, 6 feet high, came to rest. It was reported that there were an additional 3 dead aliens there, plus 1 that was still alive, for a total of 4 at this site and 2 or 3 at the D. Proctor site, for a total of 6 or 7 altogether. So those are the 3 sites. Now, if whoever it was that went to Roswell 2 years ago, if you were taken to a site north of town that said UFO crash site, that wasn't it.
Doesn't it figure?
That was not it.
Doesn't it figure?
Well, go ahead, Doug.
Well, I was just going to say that. So there's 3. Yeah, I didn't actually get to go on the tour this is the crash site thing. This is Doug, but I didn't. But I knew that it was around there, and that was enough for me. And I still got to talk to a lot of people, and it was very interesting. But so there's 3 different sites, and they're all pretty unremarkable, except for what happened there. And that's. You know, what's interesting is I find that it all seems to be related, right? Because if you're going to tell a ghost story, for example, no matter what you two believe in ghosts, I've seen one, so I'm pretty much into them. But
well, don't ask us about ghosts. We had an encounter at the museum a couple of years ago.
Well, if of all places, that building sure looks like it could be haunted.
It is.
But you start out, and this is what I love about ghost stories, is you can start out by saying, It was a standard suburban home, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. The walls had the standard floral print, 70s era wallpaper on them, and every other light bulb was out. You start out with a normal picture, right? And then what actually goes on there, though, just really can, take goosebumps all over your body and run the hairs up and down your neck. Same thing with this. You're talking about the middle of a desert. There's nothing else going on. It was a sheep farm for the first one, with a place where sheep go out and eat. And yet, what happened there? Wow, amazing stuff. So there's the 3 different crash sites. How effective do you think the Army or the military were at cleaning it up, or did they has there been unidentifiable things found? Because I know you guys were on a dig for Sci-Fi Channel,
and we've done now 3, and planning on a 4th as we speak. The military was as thorough initially as they could be, and we have descriptions. In fact, until just last year, we even had a first-hand witness as part of that recovery, the late Earl Fulford, who went out to the site with us and was able to describe how, even with the burlap bag with the gunny sack behind his shoulder, and picking up these pieces of metal that he would crumble up into his hand and toss into the bag, and as they would snap back, as they would unfold and take back, assume their original shape, the memory material.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was an interesting twist on what we have often been told before. And the descriptions of 50 to 60 troops lined up shoulder to shoulder, and even down on their hands and knees, and picking up every last shard of this material and taking them to checkpoints, and the pieces being tagged, numbered, and unloaded into crates in back of waiting Army trucks. 2 to 3 days was the extent of the operation, but we've also, in fact, there's a chapter in the book where we describe, based again on first-hand testimony, that there were still military officials going out to that site, especially after heavy rains, for the next 2.5 to 3 years, because they were still so concerned that as the heavy rains and the runoff would bring other pieces to the surface. And I think they especially learned their lesson with the son of the rancher, Bill Barrazzo Jr., who just made the mistake one night at the local pub, acknowledging that, well, as he put it, when he was asked, well, I found a few scraps, as he put it, and he found enough pieces to fill up a cigar box. And even his wife Shirley would describe how he'd come in from working the ranch for dinner in the evening and sit down to the table, and he would take that piece out from his leather chaps and place it on the table, and she'd watch as he would try to whittle on it with his pocket knife, and he'd hold his lighter to it, and he would try to poke through it with his steak knife, and it was paper thin. And she would watch as he would crumble and wad it into a ball and place it on the table, and it would just flow like water, just smooth right out. Well, he found such pieces after the fact. And by, for us especially, mistakenly admitting such, who should be at his door the very next day but a captain and 3 non-commissioned officers? And basically, the retort was, we know what you have, and you will give it to us. Well, by today's standards, we know what we would say of anybody of that sort. But this was post-World War II. The military was God. He walked on water. And he turned over all the artifacts that he had. But the point is, this was 2 years after the fact. 2 years later.
What?
So,
go ahead.
They were specifically concerned about the physical evidence. All explanations to the contrary, whether it was the original weather balloon or in 1994, Project Mogul, which became the third explanation, And then the most ridiculous, the anthropomorphic wooden crash dummies in 1997. Has nothing to do with physical evidence. It concerned specific top-secret projects, paper, information, documentation. This is where the military was interested in the artifacts. And there is not a balloon in the world that they would have been interested in 2 years after a crash.
Well, and as we go ahead,
they wouldn't be all that interested in the original balloon because I mean the famous picture of the guy
holding the balloon.
Isn't it the fellow who had put out the press release, right? Yeah. And then he had to retract it in front of the press release in a room with a bunch of people and an actual weather balloon. And they took a photo of that, and it's like the famous photo supporting the weather balloon story.
Yeah.
But even if it was a weather balloon, they wouldn't have been combing it for 2 years later.
Well, yeah. Well, a couple key points quickly, and Tom should chime in too.
Please.
The only person mentioned in the press release that you just described was Major Jesse Marcel.
Yes.
The head of intelligence of the 509th Bomb Group. Now, he did not issue the press release. The press release, we believe, originated all the way to Washington. And, in fact, we also believe that we can document that. Now, keep in mind that the rancher first reports the crash, on Sunday, July 6th. The base commander, Colonel William Blanchard, is already informed as to the crash. He doesn't just dispatch a couple of, low-level grunts to go check it out. He sends Marcel, the head of his intelligence team, as well as the head of his counterintelligence, Captain Sheridan Cabot. Counterintelligence was the predecessor to the CIA at that time. And he reports it to his superior officer, who was the head of the 8th Air Force, General Roger Ramey, over at Fort Worth, Texas, Carswell Army Airfield. And Ramey, in turn, contacts Washington. The press release, as issued on July 8th, doesn't come out for 2 more days. They had 2 days to devise this, to come up with this plan. So for anyone to suggest that this was a knee-jerk reaction or that Roswell overreacted, in responding to this crash, again, they had 2 days, and Washington was fully involved. So it wasn't Marcel that put up the press release, but he's named in it. But you are correct. He is then ordered to pose for 2 shots with the substituted weather balloon. Not in Roswell, but rather in General Ramey's office over at Fort Worth.
Oh, wow.
And that's where they did the old switcheroo.
It reeks of cover up and cover your tracks and the whole thing.
Okay, let's close the case. Okay, shut the case down. We're good with that.
Yeah.
Why do you think?
The other thing that they did was they got everybody got out of Dodge. Marcel, who was named in the original press release, he was over in Fort Worth, so he was unavailable. Colonel Blanchard went on leave. That was the official explanation. Is he immediately went on leave. Can you imagine that? A spaceship crashes and he goes on leave. Where he was, he really didn't go on leave. He went out to the crash site to set up shop there to direct the recovery. And back on the base, he hid out in the several places, in one of the airmen's barracks and in the guest house. So he was unavailable. Walter Haupt, the lieutenant who actually issued the press release, he was sent home by Colonel Blanchard, so he's unavailable. And I know I'm leaving somebody out. The governor of New Mexico.
Brazel,
yes, and Mac Brazel, he is captured, taken into custody by the Air Force, and he's sequestered on the base, so he's unavailable. The governor of New Mexico was supposed to be in Roswell on for a signing of some Air Force upcoming Air Force Day, and according to the newspaper, he went on a not an emergency leave, but a impromptu vacation to the wilderness somewhere, is what they said. So everybody who's anybody in the state of New Mexico involved in this is out of reach. So you tell me.
It sounds like they were trying to take the heat off. Wait till the heat was off.
Well,
and,
we only got very few minutes.
And we only have a couple of minutes left. And that's why it's fantastic of you two, Donald Schmitt and Thomas Carey, to write and then revise and update Witness to Roswell, the revised and expanded edition, because really in a little interview like this, there's no way you can really dig into the meat, because the meat is there in the book.
Where can people get this book at, guys?
The book can be obtained most quickly by going to Barnes & Noble or Borders or your local bookstore. It's in stock. You can get it at Amazon.com. What am I leaving out, Don? Our website?
Our website, or even the gift shop at the museum in Roswell.
Oh, okay, yeah. If you're in Roswell, you can pick it up there directly. RoswellInvestigator.com can be picked up from there. Obviously, the bigger bookstores are carrying it too, so definitely go and check that book out, people. One last question I have to ask you guys is, do you think, this is a very open-ended question, I shouldn't be asking this right now, but I have to ask this question.
The answer is no. I know what you're going to ask.
You already, you know what, I think...
We gave at the office, right?
You actually, I figured it was the answer you're going to give me anyways, and I think I have to agree with you. Do you never think that the government is ever going to come forward and say,
That's what I thought the question.
Exactly. I knew you were. Yeah.
I did too.
I have a feeling they've heard that question.
Have you ever heard that question before? Yeah. I have to agree. I don't think that
I'm going to have to think how I answered it last time.
No, I don't think they.
No, not ever. Not ever.
No.
Why do you think? I mean, really. I mean, we're out of time here, basically. Well, why do you think, briefly, if you get? I mean, why do you think they're
pride? Is it really government?
Is it ego? I mean,
I don't. I admit when I'm wrong.
We'll both jump in. Cover-up of ignorance and culpability. The fact that they threatened civilians, something that in the Constitution our military is not allowed to do, and the fact that some of those threats may have actually been carried out.
Oh my!
Yes,
big.
I'm starting to believe that's the biggest reason. They have too much to answer for that they don't want to answer for, and they're just running out the clock.
So they're all gone.
Oh wow! And I have to agree too.
Witness to Roswell, the revised and expanded edition by Donald Schmitt and Thomas Carey. What a fantastic body of work you guys have accumulated over these many years. Obviously. Congratulations for that, because that's a lot more than we can do. We only get little hour-long snippets of everything, and and you guys got to dig into something, and I'm jealous about that.
We'd be happy to do it again.
Yeah, let's definitely do that. Hang on the line for 1 second. Don't leave us just yet, okay?
Yes, because coming up next, we're going to talk to Marie D. Jones and Larry Flaxman. We get to go over to
what are you looking for?
I don't even know what I'm talking about, because I was reading more about the book. I'm like, I'm reading, Witness to Roswell. I have to remember that for next time I'm in Borders. But
we'll figure it out on the break. How's that?
I like that plan. We're going to go to break. Remember, it is all independent music on our break, so enjoy.